The motion for today's debate is that this House will accept refugees and stateless children into public schools in Malaysia. Ladies and gentlemen, I am sure everyone is excited for the debate to begin. Before that, let me introduce our educators. Our panel of esteemed educators is led by Mr. Muhammad Alif bin Abdullah. We also have with us Madam Judah binti Ahmad. To keep the time today, we have our timekeeper, Jess and Aina. Now let me introduce our speakers. On my right is the delegation from the government, represented by Ingenious. The first speaker is Huraini Hafiz. Next we have the second speaker, Alif Shauqi. The third speaker is Beneldus. The reserve speaker is Naufal Amshar. Now on my left is the representative from the opposition, represented by Clash of Words. The first speaker is Norish Najwa. The second speaker is Chun. The third speaker of today's opposition team, we have Tang Chun. The reserve speaker is Parvani. Before we proceed, allow me to brief simply everyone present of the rules and regulations to observe during the debate. I would like to remind that debaters are required to raise their hands when asking the point of information. After the speakers accepts the GOI, the debater must stand up to proceed with the subsequent action. No heckling, harassment, or barricade is allowed at any time during the debate. This also includes members of the floor. A debater must give or take at least a point of information (POI) during the debate. No points of information (POI) may be offered during the reply speech. Now, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I would like to call upon the first speaker of the government to deliver a speech and open the case for the government on today's motion that this House will accept refugees and stateless children into public schools in Malaysia.
Can you imagine Malaysia without educational institution? It almost feels like a body without a soul. With that, a very good day. I bid to the honorable judges, respective timekeepers, fellow contestants, and the members of the court. On this beautiful day, we as the government team, we would like to support today's motion called this House will accept refugees and stateless children into public schools in Malaysia. Before we begin with our debate, I would like to introduce the government. I, as the first speaker, will define the motion and also propose one major point, and also the Deputy Prime Minister will refute the points given by the leader of opposition and also will deliver 2 points, while the government will refute all the points given on the government side. Without further ado, let's move on with the defining the motion. Refugees refers to a person who has escaped from their own country for political, religious, or economic reason or because of the war. And also, stateless children refers to an individual who does not hold any citizenship of any state for public reason. And also, public schools refers to learning institution funded by the federal government. Move on to our first point. First major points where we are supporting today's motion, where we are going to emphasize on the education and livelihood. I bet everyone in this hall, ladies and gentlemen, everyone in this hall will not take education for granted, isn't it? And the refugees or the stateless children are all human. They're just like us, but perhaps they are less fortunate. And I believe, and we as the government team, we believe that everyone in this world should be given an equal rights, a fundamental right with good education, regardless of their races, religion, social or economic background. That is the most important thing, where we are emphasizing on the rights. They are children's rights, not only the children's rights, but everyone in this world deserves a good education. And critical form of protection and support, and to support their future opportunity and also reduce the risk of exploitation. Let me prove that. According to research we need to provide education? Because when we provide education, education is the key benefits. The key benefits to a brighter future for the refugees and also the stateless children. And by having education, you can also train them with new skills and also build their confidence so that they have their own knowledge, and also to train them to think critically. And in 2015, world leaders gathered in UN and adopted a sustainable development goals, which included that goal to ensure the quality of education for all child by 2030. And also, in order for this motto of the United Nations to succeed, so the global community all together have to support the education for refugees and stateless children in crisis situation. And also, education can also reduce the risk of crime in Malaysia. I'm going to prove with that with education you can reduce the crime rates, such as the factors of crimes is basically based on poverty and also some education levels. And according to a new Straits Times, in 2019, 80% of Malaysian respondents believe that the migrants and also the refugees are one of the major contributors to crimes in Malaysia. And not only that, on this recent news, there is from Berita Harian, which is on 23rd of December 2023, where 3 Rohingya refugees had been involved in a home-breaking crime, and 3 of them have the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees card, and they was shot dead by the police government. So this is the recent news shows that the Rohingya refugees has contributed to crime, and this case has been continuously happened since 2019. So without good education, they have lack of civics and they have lack of moral. So that's why we provide education such as basic education such as the two languages, which is Malay language and also the English language, the maths, the sciences, and also the civics and nationality. So that is the importance of education. And education is also give a big impact to each and every one of us in the world. And factors of stateless children, failure of marriage, registration, unregistered birth. So these are the factors of why we have stateless children in Malaysia. So, ladies and gentlemen, the refugees and also the stateless children, they don't choose to be the refugees. They don't choose to born with that. So, if we are the government didn't do something to them, then we will win. With that, I end my speech. Thank you.
I shall now invite the leader of opposition to deliver her speech. Good evening to my respected judges, fellow debaters, and members of the audience. Today, as a leader of the opposition, my team and I stand firm in opposition to the motion that suggests this House will accept refugees and stateless children into public schools in Malaysia. I agree, education is very important and is not just crucial for upliftment for the sake of adhering to basic human standards of equality, and it's also important for survival. However, what I don't agree is to bring them to public school in Malaysia or public education. It's better for them to be separated institution like under CLC or NLC, also known as Community Learning Center or Alternative Learning Center. In fact, in Malaysia, since 1970, we already have been operating ALCs and CLCs around the country, and it's not new. So my first point is, I believe there is an inherent problem of refugees in public schools, such as language barrier. One significant challenge faced by refugee children across the globe when obtaining formal education is the language barrier. many children come from diverse linguistic backgrounds. Give me a minute. And they often find themselves in host countries where the official language or medium of instruction is different from their mother tongue. Moreover, refugee children and some categories of stateless children only comprehend the national language sufficient for survival and do not possess a strong foundation in spoken, reading, and writing language. The same language-related barriers may not exist for in-situ stateless children who have spent years in Malaysia. Therefore, through data indicating this number of refugee and stateless children impacted by the language barrier is required to accurately determine the scale of the issues. Yes.
If I may, it's now the leader of opposition claimed that one of the issues of allowing refugees and stateless children into our education system will be the problem of language barrier. But recent studies have shown that even the proficiency of our national language, Bahasa Melayu, has been rather at an all-time low, considering the multiple ethnicities that we have here in our country. So how do you address this issue?
Alright.
Thank you.
As I said before, and I will say again, therefore, through the data indicating the number of refugee and stateless children impacted by the language barrier is required to accurately determine the scale of the issue. The language barrier impairs their ability to communicate, comprehend, and develop institutional literacy and language skills. So, my second point is, by letting them in our public schools, there will be different level of education. Even though they all learn same subject like science and mathematics, they maybe can achieve same level of education. For example, it can be for Malaysian children in age 7 years old already learn math about 4 divided by 3 times 3. But for the refugees, when they were 7 years old, they only learn basic math like 1 plus 1, which there are circumstances definitely different from our locals. So some of CLCs and ALCs are also run by refugees themselves, where are their instructors, their teachers also come from the same community. So these are adults understand what it's like to be a refugee. They understand struggle that these children going through. I think from this they will act better position to support their children in area, and I think it's better it builds safe environment for them. Alright.
Just now you said that refugees have a lower learning education. Do you have any proof that shows that they have a lower education?
Sorry again.
Do you have any proof that shows that the refugees' education system is lower than ours?
This is based on someone that share their experience in the internet, and I think this can be used that we will show their experience about teaching the refugees in the schools, in our public schools. Back to funding, back to LLC and CLC instead. There are two factors that we can guarantee when it comes for educate refugee children. The first one is adaptability. With the flexibility that CLCs and ALCs are able to provide, you can accommodate to these children who are not like ordinary Malaysian children. They come with huge of trauma and this significant language barrier. Some of them come with they don't use Roman alphabet. There's a lot of psychosocial support they might need that needs to be supported by their teacher. So I think it's better for them to be separated in different institutions. It's all from me. Thank you, Leader of Opposition. I now call upon the Prime Minister to deliver his speech.
Assalamualaikum and a very good evening. First, to honorable judges, the wise timekeeper, the ingenious moderator, and also all the esteemed members of the floor today. First, allow me to refute all the points that have been produced by the leader of opposition. The first point is centered around the issue of language barrier. That if we were to inspect further in our country right now, such a problem still exists and went beyond the issue of being prevalent, but also can be considered to be somewhat overplayed. What I meant by this is that if language barrier is to be made into a point to refuse today's motion, then what does that speak of our current situation today in Malaysia? Secondly, her issues, the issue that she has brought up about standardization. Malaysia and its history has seen its fair share of challenges in terms of standardizing our education system. What is another episode of it that is now related to refugees, asylum seekers in this day and age, where not only capabilities but also technological advancement has proven to be more than just a tool in putting humanity first. Third, one of the issues the opposition has brought up, which are the issues of trauma and the fact that it would affect our education system. I suggest, and to an extent, all the representatives of the government today suggest one of the ways that we can deal with this issue would be by employing all the graduates that we already have who are struggling from unemployment, that have a degree in psychology and any other related fields, to further help us in this noble cause. Now, with the reputation of the opposition water under the bridge, I will move on to the government's second point. Government's second point will be arguing on the basis of the economic perspective. Malaysia, like any other country that is in the Southeast Asia region, without any surprise, does not claim to have much attention from much of the first world countries globally. Therefore, by pushing this motion, by agreeing to this motion, we have agreed that it will help Malaysia in raising our image and also our credibility on the global stage. What we meant by this is that when Malaysia shows that we are not simply aiming towards becoming a developed country in terms of our technology, but also our ethics and our humanities, in that way, we can use it to leverage to form better diplomatic ties with other countries.
DOI. As you mentioned, all of this about undergraduates, what Malaysia should do to form diplomatic ties with those countries in need. Is it related to, should we accept refugees and stateless children in public schools in Malaysia? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. That's a very good question. Essentially, the purpose behind me mentioning the issues of unemployment in Malaysia is to refute the point that have been produced by the opposition. When the opposition has now mentioned that one of the issues that we would face is the emotional trauma that these children would not only have with them as they grow up in our education system, but also as they go through our education syllabus, can easily be a case of killing two birds with one stone. As we tackle and prove that that is not too big of an issue, we can also solve the problem of unemployment in Asia. Now, back to the government's second point. In terms of economic perspective, by showing that Malaysia, in its policy, push for humanitarian aid and also the inclusion of refugees and stateless children into our public schools and essentially our public education system, would help to elevate our image. And how this would help is essentially, it would give us a leverage in terms of geopolitics. For example, let's say that we accept a percentage of refugees coming from the Middle East. That could be a leverage for us to be in a better deal with the Middle Eastern countries that, as we all know, are wealthy from their natural resources. Aside from that, I would also like to add the fact that Malaysia has already a history in its involvement to improve education access in other countries. Should also be leveraged to better elevate our image with all the members in the United Nations. The United Nations, especially the countries with veto power, are all developed countries. Well beyond developed. There are even first world countries. And first world countries mean first world knowledge, first world technologies, first world labors. And what that means for us, an opportunity to bring all those perks into our country, which at the end of the day would be for the very benefit of the citizens of this country. With that said, I end my speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to listen to the Deputy Leader of Opposition. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed panel, and my fellow audience, I stand before you as the Deputy Leader of Opposition to present a compelling case against the motion. This House would accept refugees and stateless children into public schools in Malaysia. While the proponent argues for compassion and inclusivity, it is crucial to examine the challenges and implications that may arise from the decision. First, to begin, let's acknowledge the complexity of the refugee crisis globally and its impact on nations that open their doors widely to these refugees. While it is undoubtedly an ethical responsibility to help those in need, we must also consider the strain on our resources. A report from the Center for Immigration Studies highlights the economic challenges faced by countries that accommodate large number of refugees. The burden on public services for education cannot be underestimated. UNHCR stated that at the end of November 2023, there are almost 185,000 refugees and asylum seekers registered with UNHCR in Malaysia. Not to mention, these refugees are allowed to stay in country, especially in Malaysian immigration detention centers. This means that the government has to bear the cost of running the refugee community, which consists of food, shelter, operational expenses, and medical costs. The economic burden of handling refugees has an impact on micro and macroeconomic aspects.
Since you said the number of refugees is around 185,000, if we were to compare that with the Malaysian population, it's approximately only 1%. Is the effect that significant if we were to allow them to use public school?
As we can see right now, Malaysia has an insufficient number of public schools. Even in rural areas, there is not enough school. Malaysia can never have enough school. There are so many children that we have to accommodate for. Alright, thank you so much for your question now. So, let me continue. According to United Nations High for Commissioner of Refugees, currently in Malaysia, refugee and asylum seekers children and youth are not allowed to attend public school at any level. However, they can access education through informal community-based learning centers supported by UNHCR, just like my opposition leader has mentioned just now. There are about 150 learning centers located across Peninsula Malaysia. I believe that there is a significant amount of learning centers to accommodate that much of children, because right now I have the data for there is about 51 and 540 children who is below the age of 18 who are refugees. Alright, thank you.
It's like saying about the question and exclusivity. So, but you did not give any elaborations or examples regarding that. So, how confident are you in it?
Alright, thank you. Well, for the compassion and inclusivity part, I believe that Malaysia has already accepted this refugee into our country. I will count that as a compassion act. Thank you very much for your questions now. So, if today the government were to accept the refugees into our country and also school them in public school, we must not only think of the cost of building more public school, but also the cost of hiring the public school become a burden for Malaysia economy, as the taxpayer would have to pay more tax and the economic bracket
Here I,
will
in the opposition has mentioned about taxpayers' money, I think it's worth noting that there are organizations out there, especially the ones that are under United Nations, that also provide funds and also foreign funds for causes like this. So, I would like to ask the government, I would like to ask the opposition whether the opposition are really confident in the sense that the taxpayers will be the one who will take the biggest hit when we accept this motion. Thank you.
Alright, thank you very much. As I said just now, there are about 50,000 of children of refugees. If we were to house that 50,000 of children in a public school and also providing them food in canteen, we must not forget that they need food as well. I don't think that it will be sufficient stream of fund from NGOs and as well as non-government. As you have mentioned just now, as the Prime Minister has mentioned just now, that unemployment in Malaysia is increasing every year. Do you think that they have the money to pay for those non-government organizations when charity is asking money for them? Do you think that they will have the extra money to go and help those in need? I think that before they make that decision, they will think twice. So, moving on to my next point. There will be cultural and social integration of refugees in our education system. A comprehension study conducted by Migration Policy Institute serves as an insight resource emphasizing the critical importance of cultural difference leading to potential conflicts within educational settings. The study underscored the need of a nuanced approach that recognizes the diversity inherent in integrating refugees into our education system. Cultural disparities, as not proactively managed, can lead to tension that may impact the overall learning environment. Malaysia is known for their diverse races, religions, and beliefs. When there are refugees enrolling in public schools, the teacher will face the challenge of maintaining a harmonious study environment for local students, but also the refugee as well. I would like to emphasize on the language barrier that will be faced by refugees as well as they are not speaking our first language, or their first language are not necessarily English language, which is learned by our Malaysian students. They will have a hard time from communicating with other students or friends in their classrooms. So, furthermore, thank you.
Thank you, the leader of opposition. I shall now call upon the government whip to deliver his rebuttals.
As for me, there is only one thing which I really want to point out from the opposition team, is that never ever give something so crucial without any evidence to back it up. But before that, I would say a very good evening to the honorable judges, moderator, timekeepers, opponents and comrades. Today I, as the government whip, will be debunking every point that has been brought up by the opposition team. So for the first rebuttal of the leader of opposition, she has mentioned that although they agree that education is important for survival, however, she said that the government should not really be interested in focusing towards the refugee children. She said that organizations such as the CLS should give them a chance. But we should know about this, is that when we are talking about private sector, does it really resemble us as Malaysian? Does the private sector really accommodate with ourselves as Malaysian? And furthermore, if we were to compare the economic-wise in terms of government and private sector, the government sector is around 3 times more higher than the government sector is around 3 times more higher than the private sector. So actually, if the government would help them, it will be a lot more easier for them to have an education in public school. And a funny part is that since the CLS is under the UNHCR, which is the United Nations High Council of Refugees, it does not really supports the team of Malaysia. It is a private organization that is held by many countries to hopefully allow them to have a perfect education. So, we as Malaysians, since we have had Palestinians in their worst time, we have had the Rohingya people, why not we give these refugees and stateless children to study in our school as to show an example and humanity in our country. Last but not least, I would like to say about the first speaker is that when we ask her POI, she did not really give a valid reason to back up her resource. She is saying that the CLS sector would apparently be sufficient enough to educate these children in Malaysia. The second point that the first speaker has also mentioned about is that there are different levels of education. She did not mention the proof education. I did not know where she said that Malaysia, when standard 1 you study 2 times 2, whereas in other countries, at that time you study 2 plus 2. Do you know that refugees means there are many countries, Rohingya, Palestine, other countries, you cannot mention just a general statement without giving any advice. So before moving forward, I would like to rebut on the second speaker of the opposition team. Wow. The second speaker really just went around the bushes without giving enough evidence. She really had lack of resources. The first thing that catch my mind is that she said Malaysia is improving. Malaysian unemployment is increasing from time to time. However, where's the resource? We are waiting for this resource because as we found out yesterday that according to Broking.com, it has said that the Malaysian economy at 2021 has increased around 3.24% in the industrial area, which means that refugees who mainly works in that area has contributed to such a degree that it increased our economic rate. So I do not know that where she get that point. And she also are comparing on we do not allow them because of the language barrier. Come on, education has many things. Are you going to say that just because that person, he or she, does not speak Bahasa Melayu, doesn't mean that they shouldn't have a chance to learn? You can...
Yes, of course they should have a chance to learn, but is it in the public school? Because all of our public schools use BM as the medium of compensation, is it? So why not we just locate them in the CLC, which is a community learning center for them? We can ease their learning, but not affecting our citizens, our students. Is it better to locate us in CLC? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so if I were to interpret your question, you are saying that it is better if these refugees study in CLC because it does not interrupt them. But where are you getting this information that it does not interrupt them? If you were to compare the refugee student, as said as the first speaker, there is around 50,000. In Malaysia, student there is around 2 million. If you do the math, it is approximately only 1%, ladies and gentlemen. It does not affect. If we can fit in 1 or 2 students in each school, that would certainly does not change anything.
POI?
No, thank you. So, continuing. Since the second speaker is comparing that there is a language barrier, since we are talking mostly about students, these are children. Children can still learn. They can still learn from any time to time. The main important is that they must have the right to learn. Because if you were to look back at the UNICEF rule, it says that every children has the right to learn. It does not matter what ethnic, gender, and last but not least, what nationality they are. So we as Malaysians, if we were to show that our humanity exists, we should allow them to train in public school. Because CLC does not represent Malaysia, it is under the UNHCR, which is a private sector from another country. Do we want to show that another country is helping those? Or do we want to show that we are really helping those? So, now I would like to back up my first speaker said, is that she has said that education and livelihood is the main factor that has been brought up in our argument. However, the other speaker did not mention any POI. So I would totally believe that they are really supporting on our first speaker. That is very fantastic. So what she mentioned is that we are giving them the basic fundamentals of learning to ensure that they have the right for survival. Moving on to my second speaker. Again, there's only one POI, but the second deputy leader of opposition did not rebut his point. So, I mean, if that's the case, then yeah, maybe you do agree with this point. And for us, that I would like to say that before I would take a seat, I would most certainly say that native workers often do better in presence of more migrant refugees in labour force. Why? This is because native workers such as us, we usually specialize in better paid jobs compared to them. We just want to help them to have a peaceful life, to ensure that their life is not ruined. They are also children, they are also our age. That's all from me, thank you.
Okay, thank you. A very good evening to the judges, moderators, my friends, speakers, and also the timekeepers. So I would also like to oppose all the points have stated by the Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, and the government wing. Why we didn't oppose you just now is because I'm going to read you now. Okay. So as I mentioned, we do agree that we should provide the education to the refugees, the children, right? Of course, UNICEF states that they will have the chance to learn, but we should not let their chance to learn affect or give a negative impact on Malaysian citizens' education. Like in Malaysia, as the deputy leader of opposition has stated just now, Malaysia has insufficient school. We have limited resources, so we cannot accommodate all the students into our public schools. That is a better way we locate them in the CLC, the Community Learning Center. I think the language barrier is a very important point. You just imagine the Palestinian. Yes, please.
So, opposition week mentioned something about our country lacking in terms of the resources that is needed to essentially provide education even for our citizens and our students. But I would like to point out that there is one discrepancy, given that during the FCO, during the time of our pandemic, it has been reported that the results of that particular batch, that period of time, has been one of the highest in Malaysia by the deployment of PDPR. So, how does the opposition answer to that question? Thank you.
Okay, it's quite confusing hearing your question. You mean the PPR has an improvement in the studies? Yeah, you mean maybe SPM 2021 has a better result compared to the previous years, right? But is it related to the refugees? No, this is only for Malaysian citizens. Yeah, there is an increment in the results of Malaysians in the SPM or maybe SPM or any other results. But this is not related to the refugees. Of course, Malaysian students have increment in their studies from time to time. But is it still enough? Is it competitive enough compared to like other countries like Hong Kong or Singapore or the United States, United Kingdom? Yeah, it's not enough. So we have to improve further from time to time. So the resources must be yes, please.
Where are you getting the source that says that there is not enough public school to offer to these refugees? Where's your facts?
Okay, why I say there are limited resources of schools provided to the refugees. Okay, this is just a common sense. Do you see refugees in your school? Yeah, maybe the UNHCR states that, as mentioned by the leader of opposition, the refugees should not be in the same school as the public. This is because of several reasons. For example, they might have the health issues, as they might be carrying like tuberculosis or any infectious disease that may be infected by the citizens. So we have to protect the citizens first before we emphasize on their studies. Yeah, we have to prioritize our citizens first. This is the main thing. Do you think placing them in the public schools is good enough to bring them better in their education? Yes, please.
So you say the same about health
Yes.
and disease. So are you talking then that issue that cannot be solved? I mean, like we do have expertise in medicals. So are you saying that is the biggest problem?
Okay, thank you for your point of view. Okay, so this can be resolved, but in a better way, which is the CLC, the Community Learning Center. Why don't we just place them or let them to go to the Community Learning Center with a better quality of education for them, specialized for them? Why not? Instead of you want to treat them do medical checkups on them first, but there are still a very high risk that the diseases will be spreaded into to the Malaysian citizens. So I think it's better for the CLC. We didn't oppose that we must give education to the refugees, but in another way. For example, the CLC. Is it? Yes, please.
You mentioned that CLC education. Are you telling that Malaysian education is lower than the CLC?
This is a different thing to say. CLC is just specially given to the refugees because of maybe their education is not that good. It's not good enough, and they cannot be accommodated into the same school as the public schools. Because as she mentioned just now, is like maybe they didn't have the same syllabus because of certain reasons, like maybe their countries are facing wars. Do you expect the refugees, to have the same level of education with the German children? No, definitely, this is just common sense. I don't need any proof to prove my point of view, is it? Yeah, you can just imagine. You have to prioritize the citizens of Malaysia first. So, I think as a government, you should think more on the citizens first before you think about the refugees. Of course, we must show humanitarian care to them, but before this, we have to make sure our Malaysians, our citizens, have the quality education first. If you cannot promise this, you cannot ensure this, then you mustn't emphasize on the second thing. You must not prioritize the foreigners' education first. Okay. Other than that, there would also be social integration problems. Because they are from other countries, maybe they're from Palestine. Do we share the same culture? No, it is different. So we have to provide another better education resources for them. That is the CLC. Okay. So as I said just now, did you have any news about like our Minister of Education let the refugees, the children to go into the public school? No. I mean 99.9% of Malaysian schools do not have any refugees. This is why our government are going to protect us. They have to prioritize us, we Malaysians first, before giving them education. Of course, we must show our humanitarian care. All this is the type of active conclude. Okay. So just imagine if you are Malaysian, would you like the chance, your rights to be given off to the others with different level of you? You are the citizen, but others are just refugees. Of course, we must show our humanitarian care, but we must have our right first. Our government should prioritize us first. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of constructive speeches. Now, each team is given 3 minutes to prepare their reply speeches. Afterwards, we shall continue with the reply speech from the representative of the opposition, then followed by the government. invite leader of opposition or deputy leader of opposition to deliver the reply speech.
In conclusion, us as the opposition, we have presented compelling arguments against the motion, which included points such as language barrier, strain on economy, resources, culture, and social integration. So right now, I would like to rebut the point given by the Prime Minister, which states that we should open our doors to the refugees, especially in public school. By opening our doors to the refugees in public school, this will cause us potential security risks. As the Prime Minister has mentioned just now, she has mentioned that the Rohingya refugees has actually robbed someone's house and they have committed crime, which I believe that this is all the more reason to not let the refugees to be situated in our public school, as they might not have sufficient civic or moral to be schooled together with us. Who would know that they might be spies that was sent by the other country to come and imbalance our security system of Malaysia. Next up, the Deputy Prime Minister has mentioned that Malaysia, by schooling the refugees and stateless children into public school in Malaysia, it will have an increase of economy in our country. But before that, we as the Malaysian government would first have to pay for the school fees for the refugee itself. From that process, we can see that it will be causing us money, and it will be like going negative instead of going positive, and it will take a long time for us to actually see the effect of increasing our economy sector. Even if they increase, how much would it be? How much did the industry of Malaysia give to our economy? We still do not know yet the exact number, as they do not provide the exact number. Next up, I would like to back up our point of language barrier. As we all know, all the refugees come from different countries like Palestine, Rohingya, or even the Ukrainian. We know that they all spoke different language. Some refugees are as young as 2 or 3 years old. Would you imagine they speak the same language as us? From the trauma that was caused by war, they would not even be able to speak or to express their ideas to those around them. So how would we be able to school them into public schools immediately before providing them with medical costs or medical care? From that part, it would take a lot of the Malaysians' income. Next up, as I stated just now, all the refugees come from different education backgrounds, so they would definitely have a hard time catching up with our Malaysian students when it comes to them schooling in public school. Can you? This is very basic. Just imagine an 11 years old refugee compared to the 11 years old of Malaysian public school children. Would they be able to solve the same mathematical problem, or would they be able to think rationally and make
Leader of opposition, I shall now call upon Prime Minister or Deputy Prime Minister to deliver the reply speech.
Thank you, Ms. Moderator. First, allow me to reiterate the government's stance today. Firstly, we believe that in accepting the refugees and stateless children into public schools in Malaysia, that we are essentially doing the only right thing there is. Secondly, our main point, we have pointed out the correlations between education and livelihood. And here, we are not mentioning about the livelihood of refugees and stateless children alone, but no, we are also talking on the behalf of the livelihood of the citizens in Malaysia. As the Prime Minister has pointed out before, the fact that there are involvements of refugees in domestic crime rates. By preventing that, by providing education, we can better secure the safety of the citizens of Malaysia. Next, in terms of economic perspective, as I personally have pointed out before, what we are doing by agreeing with this motion is not just charity, it's not pure generosity for those who are in need, but also a form of social leverage that we can use to better strengthen our diplomatic ties with countries of first world quality. In that, we believe that we have provided substantial proofs, answers, and rebuttals that highlights the superiority of government stance. And to reiterate, to emphasize the motion that by accepting refugees and stateless children into public schools in Malaysia will in no way jeopardize the livelihood, security, employment, and even opportunity of the citizens of our beloved country. And it is with a heavy heart that I pointed out that by the irrelevant responses, no POIs, during the speech given by the Prime Ministers, it was as if the opposition themselves intended to sit with us here in the government benches. With that, we the government emphasize that we stand firmly with today's motion. By accepting refugees and stateless children in public schools in Malaysia, we are not just doing them a favor, but we are also doing the people of Malaysia, all of us, a favor. To conclude, allow me to summarize today's discourse. In the end, today's discussion is simply a talk, a conversation between the lesser of two evils. If we were, as a whole lot, to accept today's motion, that would mean that as a whole, we betray the fundamentals of patriotism. But, on the contrary, by refusing, we would be doing a direct betrayal on the very essence of humanity. And with that, we, on the government benches, proudly declare that the government today choose to be human. Thank you.